Welcome to the Rugby Obsession Deep Dive. Today we're really digging into that huge Autumn Nation Series match where the Springboks pulled off that phenomenal win over France.
Yeah.
We want to go beyond just the scoreline, get into the key takeaways, the big player performances, and figure out the coaching decisions that really made it happen for South Africa.
Yeah, it was more than just a win, wasn't it? It felt like a real statement piece. That 32-17 victory at the Stade de France. I mean, they did it after spending a big chunk of the second half down to 14 men. So our job here is to pull together what the sources are saying and really understand how they managed that, how they kept their lead, even extended it under all that pressure.
Exactly. We're cutting through the noise so you can grasp the tactics behind the headlines. And look, if this kind of deep analysis is your thing, you really should subscribe to Rugby Obsession. Now is the time. It's honestly the best way to get these detailed breakdowns focused on the why and the how of the game. Okay, let's get into this win then. Straight away, the sources are highlighting individual brilliance, particularly how some of the older heads really stepped up. Let's start with the scrum half, Cobus Reinach. He's 35 now. And that, quote, like a fine wine, getting better with age. Well, it almost doesn't do him justice here, does it?
No, it's spot on, but based on pure tactical execution. What the analysis points to is his decision-making, that control at the base of the ruck. It's exactly what you need from an experienced nine. But, crucially, his kicking game was so precise, it just kept turning the pressure back onto France. This isn't just playing well for his age, it's showing a really evolved game sense.
And he wasn't just managing things, was he? He brought that spark, that moment that just shifts everything. That try they called breathtaking, the snipe, that little chip over the top, the regather. Wow, that was the moment you could feel the Stade de France just go quiet. Pure opportunism. It basically told France, your home crowd isn't going to save you today.
And what's really interesting is how that veteran composure, that sort of genius moment, set the stage perfectly for the younger guys. We saw him paired so effectively with the fly half, Sacha Feinberg-Mngomezulu, and he absolutely deserved that Player of the Match award. Everyone seems to agree. The sources are calling him a generational talent, and Paris was where he really showed why.
Yeah, the reports say he caused France all kinds of problems. He just seems so calm, like he's been playing at this level for a decade already. And you see the praise coming in from guys who really know their stuff. Eddie Jones, Nick Mallett, Rassie Erasmus himself, they're all raving about his ability to deliver when it matters most.
Well, tactically, this pairing could be huge for the Boks moving forward. You've got Reinach with the experience, the control, the kicking game, and then Feinberg-Mngomezulu brings this explosive, almost unpredictable attacking threat. That try he scored late on, it was just the exclamation point on a performance that suggests the Boks' future planning is maybe even ahead of schedule.
Okay, so from the back's precision, let's shift to the forward's grunt work. Because the Springbok pack, that engine room, laid down that relentless physical platform, especially vital once they went down to 14. Let's talk Jasper Wise, the number 8, tireless. Just a rock all game, according to the reports.
Yeah, his value is just immense right now. Wise is only 30, but plays with such maturity. The sources detail his carries causing so much damage, just constantly getting them over the gain line right when they needed that forward momentum. And his defense was just classic, gritty number 8 work. You can see why the coaches reportedly see him as, well, almost one of the first names on the team sheet now.
Right. And you add to that raw power, the smarts, and sheer consistency of someone like Pieter-Steph du Toit. Well, that's a back row that just doesn't quit. Former World Player of the Year, and the reports note he rarely gets less than a 7 out of 10 rating. Got an 8 this game. Why is he always so effective?
Du Toit is just the definition of reliable, isn't he? He's ferocious in the carry, he hits hard on the tackle, and he's incredibly solid in the lineout. That keeps the set piece as a weapon. And think about it, when you suddenly have to reorganize your pack because of a red card, having a flanker like Du Toit who can basically cover lock if needed is just invaluable. His presence really helped the Boks manage that crisis without their lineout falling apart.
And talking about huge efforts, we have to mention Malcolm Marx. Hooker, 31 years old, played a whopping 77 minutes in Paris. Now, the source material stresses this is really unusual for a starting hooker these days.
That's a critical point, yeah. Most teams swap their hooker around the 55, maybe 60-minute mark, right? Get fresh legs on for the final push, Mark staying on till the 77th minute. That wasn't just about his incredible fitness, though that's part of it. It was a clear strategic decision. He's their set-piece anchor. The coaches obviously decided they absolutely needed him out there to keep the scrum and line-out solid, especially after losing a lock.
Okay, this brings us to maybe the most fascinating part.
Yeah.
The coaching. The sources are throwing around phrases like masterstroke when talking about the Springbok coaches. But let's push back on that a little. Lood de Jager gets that red card, bang, right on halftime. High shot on Ramos. Did the coaches really pull off a masterstroke? Or were they just, forced into making the right moves because they had no other choice?
That's a fair question. But the analysis seems to lean towards it being a deliberate masterstroke. Not necessarily in specific substitutions they made because of the card, but in the timing of what they didn't do. Keeping key guys like Marks on, that was a choice. And the bigger thing seems to be how they managed the remaining 14 players. The praise for the backroom team focuses on how they kept the team so calm, so confident, even when things went wrong. They didn't seem to panic and throw on all the replacements at once. They trusted the structure they already had.
Right, so the masterstroke wasn't some magic substitution plan. It was more about maintaining their composure, their structure, under massive pressure. Instead of maybe rushing the bomb squad on in a bit of a scramble, they kept that set-piece foundation strong, which is everything to their game, and then relied on the pure commitment of players like Wise and Du Toit to fill the gaps elsewhere.
Precisely. They controlled the situation rather than just reacting to it. That's incredibly hard to do when you lose a key forward right before halftime. It says a lot about their preparation, their scenario planning, and maybe the psychological edge the coaches instill. It meant they dictated the terms of the second half, even with 14 men, and, this kind of analysis, getting beyond just the result to see the tactical thinking, that's exactly what we aim for here. If you want to really sharpen your understanding of the game, get these kinds of breakdowns regularly. Make sure you hit subscribe on Rugby Obsession. Don't miss out.
Now, let's be fair and switch focus to France. Because this was meant to be their big chance, wasn't it? Revenge for that World Cup quarterfinal.
Yeah.
Especially when they got the man advantage. And look, there were definitely a few positives for them, even if the final score looks pretty bad.
Oh, absolutely. Anthony Jalanche, for instance, he was outstanding. The reports call him a force around the field. His power and contact, it really is something to watch. You feel for him being on the losing side because he kept his standards incredibly high, even when, the team seemed to unravel a bit under that Boks pressure.
And Thomas Ramos at fullback showed his class, too. Kick and tee accuracy, sure, but those two try assists for Damien Penaud were quality. That first one especially, described as something out of nothing. It showed that French flair, that ability to just create magic, is still there.
And it's a big but. That Lood de Jager red card was their golden opportunity. It set up the whole second half. The narrative should have been France turning the screw, but it all went, as the source says, pear-shaped. And that really does put the spotlight on Fabien Galthy and the strategic calls made from the French coaching box.
Yeah, he must have been hugely frustrated, as one report put it, for botching that chance. The timing of his substitution seems to be a major point of criticism. Did he go too early, bring on the wrong guys? It looked like the French bench, players like Luku, Gross, Aldeguerri, Taufi Fenua, they just didn't provide that necessary impact.
Well, the proof is right there in the result, isn't it? When France had 15 against 14, they couldn't really build consistent pressure or find a tactical edge. That lack of impact from their replacements, it actually seemed to let the 14 Springboks grow in confidence, grow in stature as the minutes ticked by.
And the errors just piled up for France, too. That yellow card for the winger, Louis Bielbiarri, around 62 minutes, absolutely killer. For 10 crucial minutes, they basically canceled out their own man advantage, just when they needed to be clinical.
And didn't South Africa make them pay for it immediately? Scored 2 tries during that sin bin period. I believe that whole sequence just sums up the game, doesn't it? France have the advantage, give away a needless penalty, lose their advantage, and then concede twice to a 14-man team that just looked far more composed. It says it all, really.
We also saw Romain Ntamak, usually so influential, really struggle to get into the game. He came off second best against Feinberg-Mngomezulu, partly because, as the report suggests, the Springbok defense just suffocated him. Didn't give him any time or space to work his magic. So, okay, we saw the Boks keep their heads, keep their structure, even when down a man. France, meanwhile, really struggled to make their massive advantage count. So let's put it to you, the listener. What do you think was the biggest single factor there? Was it the Springboks' amazing management of that red card crisis, their mental strength, or was it more about France's substitutions failing to fire and maybe not handling the pressure?
Looking at the bigger picture, this match really feels like a massive seismic statement from the Springboks, doesn't it? Any lingering doubts about their status after the World Cup? This kind of win banishes them. It shows they can win tough, win ugly, win under pressure, led by those veterans, the ones aging like fine wine, and powered by this explosive generational talent coming through, all steered by a remarkably calm coaching team.
It really was an incredible performance, especially under that kind of pressure. Okay, final thought then. Considering everything we've discussed, the players, the coaching decisions, what do you think will be the lasting legacy of this specific win for the Springboks? Is it all about the arrival of Sacha Feinberg-Mngomezulu, the dawn of a new star? Or is it more a testament to that coaching brilliance, that tactical genius under extreme, unexpected pressure? Something for you to chew on. Right, before we wrap up, just a final reminder, make sure you're subscribed to Rugby Obsession. You don't want to miss our next deep dive into the game we love. Thank you for listening to the Rugby Obsession Deep Dive, and we'll look forward to you listening to our next episode.